I did have a question. Um, when we value a company, we've got in our space, pretty small companies, not huge companies. We're doing asset sales more than stock sales, right?
Yes.
And part of the reason is contingent liabilities with stock sales. Um, One of the questions I have, Tanya, because of your deep wealth of experience and knowledge, is what do you do with intangible assets? For instance, an intangible asset would be potential, right? You've got, let's say, a manufacturing company that has unused equipment that they could, if they had the manpower and the sales and so forth, they could double their capacity.
Yeah.
How do you value that kind of stuff?
You don't. I mean, it doesn't have it. So you, the equipment has value, but the fact that they're underutilizing it doesn't have value. You can't really value something that hasn't happened or something that the buyer has to do to make it happen. Because a buyer's not going to pay the seller for something for work that they have to do. Does that make
I
sense?
would I would ask you then if it was a strategic buyer. Depends on the buyer then, right?
If it was a strategic buyer, the strategic buyers might pay a premium for a business because from a synergistic standpoint, they may be able to cross sell to additional markets, which would increase and compensate for that. They may be able, a strategic buyer that currently is at capacity may need more capacity. And if they're maxed out and they see this other shop, they may be willing to buy the shop, but they're still not going to pay a whole lot more for underutilization. They'll buy it because it's underutilized and because there's additional capacity that's not being used, but they're not going to pay for that.
Okay. Even if
Because I
it's
mean,
brand
that's a
new. I
common thing
mean,
that sellers want. They say, oh yeah, my business has so much potential. Back in, when I had more energy, I was doing 5 million in revenue. And yeah, today I'm only doing 1 million, but the potential is there. It just needs somebody who has more energy. It's like, yeah, but I can't sell your business as if it's generating $5 million because you're only generating 1 million. And the buyer is not going to pay you when the buyer is going to have to build up your business again. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's like buying your own labor from somebody, basically, or paying somebody for a job.
Well, I mean, a lot of these people are buying a job anyways, and they know that, but nonetheless, they're still, you know, they still want to pay a reasonable value for it based on what's there. So let's put it this way. And another analogy, let's say you got a Ferrari that's been wrecked or something. The Ferrari may have been worth 200 grand at some point, but it's not right now. And it's like, oh, but the buyer is a body shop. They can fix it up, or has a repair shop and they can do all they can fix it up and make it good as new. Well, so what? They're still not going to pay a seller for that because that's work they have to do.
here's an example too, another example. I've been in the trucking industry, right? And back in the day, we used to have authority to drive, or a route authority. And it's on their balance sheet. It shows up on a balance sheet. So trucking companies back before 1978, before the deregulation ICC came in, these authorities were worth millions and millions of dollars, but they were intangibles. They were not based upon revenue. They were intangibles, and people would literally buy the business based upon the authority, not the cash flow.
Yeah.
Now I'm guessing that could cross over into other industries too. Like you were talking about.
Yeah, restaurant with a liquor license, or you can have certain businesses that have patents. If they have a very,
IP.
like I remember talking to somebody who had a medical device patent on these VR they were like virtual reality goggles or something that somebody could wear inside an MRI machine when they were claustrophobic and all that, that would make them feel like they were, way out in the outdoors. It was kind of a very cool thing. And he had, conversations going on with Philips and with some other publicly held corporations, at the time when I went to talk to him and all that. So I never ended up getting the engagement, but it was a fascinating business. And they were talking like $50 million just for the patent.
So that would be definition of an intangible because, right?
Because it wasn't generating the level of cash flow at the time to
Yeah.
support. Yes.
Well,
but the
startups are
patent
an
itself.
example of intangible value, right? A
Yeah.
startup. And I don't want to sell a startup, don't get me wrong, that's the worst thing. But I'm just, the reason I'm asking is we got a client right now that's got some intangible value to it, and we're trying to come up with some sort of valuation. I've got actually two. I was talking to someone that's developed this software this morning. Now they've got an existing 30-year-old company, and it's making pretty good money, but it values out of maybe 300,000.
Yeah.
But the software is a platform that's really unlimited in the amount of work that they could stick into it and produce value. And so that's something new that's hasn't been utilized. It's not something that was existing. And they're old, they want to get out, they're tired, they want to do something different. So that's
those are tough because they don't have a track record on it yet. And software, you've got people creating new software every day. And who's the biggest competitor? Is there other software out there? Are there other platforms similar to it? Because when it comes to any type of software or online courses, things like that, they have to be marketed. People have to know they exist. The internet's a big place. There's a tremendous amount of work that has to be done in order to get people to that platform to pay for a subscription or to pay to use that software or whatever. And if they haven't done that part yet, then how do they know that it's going to be received well in the marketplace?
Well, the software itself is, it's kind of like the manufacturing building and the equipment. It's, you're not selling the software, you're selling the service or the product. So all I'm saying in that particular case, it's an IP and proprietary IP for this particular company and what they do. And so their deliverable is not limited by what it was limited by.
Gotcha.
Now it's limited by employees. Now, one thing that they could easily do is they could outsource. They've never done that. So, they could reduce their cost in half today. I know they could. But it like goes over the owner's head. That does not compute because they've been doing it the same way for 30 years.
Yeah.
So that's an intangible to me. So I'm just bringing this up because I think there's a lot of value there. And I guess I'm talking about the sizzle, not the steak, right?
In some respects, yeah.
Anyway. Someone said one time, this is interesting. I was in the car wash business. I owned a car wash. And I discovered that the only thing that people cared about was if their car was clean or not. That's all they cared about, and dry.
Yeah.
They did not care about the equipment, what I had as equipment. They did not care. I cared. And all the car wash equipment salespeople cared, but the customer did not care. And the way that they got this across in one of our seminars is they said, if you go to a restaurant and buy a prime rib, do you care what stove it was cooked on? So that got the point across real fast.
Yep.